Now, 3 Russian warships and a submarine have arrived in Cuba. That's around 90 miles off the US coast. The ships will be carrying out military exercises. Cuba says it does not represent a threat to the region. Likewise, US officials have said the drills are non-threatening, though it comes as tensions are still high between the US and Russia over the war in Ukraine. While hosting his Cuban counterpart in Moscow on Wednesday, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, said Moscow was grateful to Cuba for its principled position on the situation around Ukraine. Now, it's important to note the Russian warships are not believed to be carrying nuclear weapons. But what exactly are they doing in Cuba? Let's take you to Mexico City. Our correspondent there is Will Grant. And Will, let me put that to you. What are those military ships, submarines, doing in that location?
Well, in essence, I think there's 2 very, very clear messages that they're sending. The first, which is perhaps less surprising and to be expected, is a sort of underscoring of the relationship between Moscow and Havana. You mentioned there Sergei Lavrov and the comments he made about Cuba's position on the war in Ukraine. Cuba has been a loyal ally to Russia for decades now, and of course to the Soviet Union before then. So that solidifies that relationship, but of course the one that most people are focused on is the message being sent to Washington. Very much a message, or certainly it seems, of what meddling in one's backyard can bring. That, you know, that the Caribbean is considered by Washington's successive administrations for decades and decades, right the way through the Cold War, to be its backyard. And this, I think, is a show of strength. You've made it very clear, and you're right to do so, that there isn't a military threat that the United States perceives by these military exercises. Cuba, too, at pains to make that clear as well. But it is an interesting moment. It's happening at a very, very interesting moment of global hostilities.
Yes, and whilst both sides say there is no threat here, it does not represent a threat to the region. I mean, you're right. What it does do, though, it's a threat politically, it's a threat diplomatically. It's just saying we are here, and that in itself could be deemed in some circles to be a threat.
Not only are we here, but you've been taking your eye off the ball when it comes to Central America, the Caribbean, you know, that we are solidifying and strengthening relationships in your backyard if you're going to be doing the same in ours, as it's seen in terms of Ukraine. So, yeah, important subtext. It all has the echoes of the Cold War. Of course, the US officials were across what was going on, was monitoring all of the activities by these warships on their way to the Caribbean. But I think the fact that it's underlining a relationship with Havana and Caracas in Venezuela later on during the summer is an important step from the Russian perspective.
Will, it's good to have you there with the very latest. Thank you. That's Will Grant there joining us from Mexico City. Thank you.